I'm Daniel, a 42-year-old architect with a penchant for clean lines and sturdy foundations, both in buildings and in life. My wife, Clara, is 38, a vibrant art curator whose laughter could light up a gallery. We've been married for 12 years. Our life in Seattle a tapestry of shared dreams, weekend hikes in the Cascades, late-night debates over Pinot Noir, and plans for a future that felt unshakable. Our home, a modern loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, was our sanctuary, a place where we'd built not just a life but a legacy of trust. Or so I thought. It started subtly, like a hairline crack in a concrete beam. Clara's phone, once an open book, began to lock itself in her presence. She'd smile, brush it off as work stress, her fingers dancing nervously over the screen. Her gallery openings, once a joint affair where I'd mingle with artists and collectors, became solo missions. "You'd be bored, Dan," she'd say, her eyes avoiding mine. I trusted her, though. Clara was my North Star, her loyalty as certain as gravity. But trust, I'd learned, could be a fragile scaffold. One evening, I found a receipt in her coat pocket. Dinner for two at La Mer, an upscale spot we'd never visited together. The date was a Tuesday, a night she claimed was a late work meeting. I confronted her, my voice steady but my chest tight. It was a client, she said, her tone too quick, her smile too practiced. I wanted to believe her, but the crack widened. I began noticing her scent. New, musky, not the jasmine I'd bought her for years. I'd lie awake, her sleeping form beside me, wondering if the woman I loved was still mine. I didn't want to snoop, but doubt is a relentless architect. I checked her laptop one night, her password unchanged since our dating days. Her email was a labyrinth of innocuous work threads, but one name stood out: Julian Voss, a photographer whose work Clara had curated last spring. Their emails were professional at first, then playful, then intimate. "Meet me at the loft." One read, time-stamped 3 weeks ago. My loft. Our home. My stomach churned as I pictured them here, in our space, while I was at a site visit. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking, the foundation of our marriage trembling beneath me. I didn't confront her yet. I needed proof, something undeniable. I installed a small camera in our living room, hidden in a bookshelf, telling myself it was to protect our home. But deep down, I knew I was hunting for betrayal. The first few days showed nothing, just Clara reading, sipping tea, being the woman I loved. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, the footage changed everything. The camera feed was live on my phone as I sat in my office, blueprints spread before me, unseeing. Clara had said she was working from home, a rare, quiet day. I told her I'd be at a construction site until late. Instead, I watched. At 2:17 p.m., the front door opened, and Julian Voss walked in. Lean, tousled hair, a swagger that screamed confidence. Clara followed, laughing, her hand brushing his arm. My heart pounded as they moved to the couch. Our couch, their bodies close, too close. They didn't waste time. Clara's fingers traced Julian's jaw, her smile one I hadn't seen in months, alive, unguarded. He pulled her into a kiss, deep and hungry, and my world tilted. I gripped my desk, the phone shaking in my hand, as they shed jackets, shoes, inhibitions. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Right there, in our living room, they tangled together, her laughter mixing with his murmurs. I couldn't hear the words, but the intimacy was deafening. My wife, my Clara, was giving herself to another man in the heart of our home. I stopped the feed. I couldn't watch more. Not yet. My office felt like a cage, the air too thin. I drove home, not knowing what I'd do, only that I needed to see her to confront the lie. While I walked in, Clara was alone, curled up with a book, the picture of innocence. "You're early," she said, her smile faltering as she saw my face. I wanted to scream, to demand why, but I held back. Revenge, I realized, needed precision, not chaos. That night, I replayed the footage in my study, every frame a knife. Julian's hands on her, her size, the way she looked at him, like he was her world. I recognized that look. She used to give it to me. I dug deeper, accessing her cloud backups. Photos, messages, a secret folder labeled J. Images of them at galleries, hotels, even our cabin in Leavenworth. Texts planning meetups. Her words dripping with affection she hadn't shown me in years. The betrayal wasn't a moment. It was a campaign, months of deception while I built our future. I didn't sleep. I planned. Clara's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was a theft of everything we'd vowed. I'd loved her fiercely, built my life around her, and she turned our marriage into a stage for her lies. I wouldn't just confront her. I'd dismantle the world she'd built with Julian. But first, I needed to know more about him, this man who'd invaded my life. I hired a private investigator, a discreet woman named Rachel, to tail Julian. I wanted his weaknesses, his secrets. If Clara had chosen him, I'd make them both regret it. Rachel was thorough, her reports clinical yet devastating. Julian Voss, 35, was a rising star in Seattle's art scene, known for his moody landscapes and a charm that disarmed clients. He lived in a Belltown studio, drove a leased BMW, and had a string of short-term relationships, none serious, until Clara. Rachel's photos showed them at cafes, galleries, a park near Lake Union, their hands always touching. One shot, taken through a hotel window, showed Clara in his arms, her face serene. I stared at it until my eyes burned, memorizing her betrayal. Julian wasn't flawless, though. Rachel uncovered debts, credit cards, a defaulted loan for his last exhibition. He'd been leaning on Clara's connections to secure gigs, her influence opening doors he couldn't. She wasn't just his lover, she was his ladder. The realization stung, but it also clarified my plan. I'd tear down his career, his reputation, and leave him with nothing. But Clara, her punishment needed to be personal, a mirror to the pain she'd inflicted. I started small, testing the waters. At a gallery event Clara hosted, I accidentally spilled wine on Julian's portfolio, ruining prints he'd planned to pitch to a collector. His face, a mix of panic and forced calm, was my first taste of justice. Clara, oblivious, apologized for me, her hand on his arm. I smiled, playing the clumsy husband, but inside, I was laying the groundwork. I began contacting Julian's clients anonymously, hinting at his financial troubles, his unreliability. One by one, bookings canceled, his calendar thinning like a crumbling facade. At home, I kept up the charade. Clara noticed my distance, asked if I was okay. Just work? I lied, mimicking her own deflections. I cooked her favorite meals, kissed her goodnight, all while plotting. I hacked into Julian's email, his password laughably simple, and found his pitch for a major solo show at the Fremont Gallery, a career-defining opportunity. Clara had written half his proposal, her words unmistakable. I forwarded it to a rival photographer, who coincidentally pitched a similar concept, undercutting Julian's chance. When he lost the show, Clara came home distraught, blaming the gallery's politics. I nodded, high to my triumph. But this was just a prelude. I wanted Clara to feel the weight of her choices, to see her world unravel as mine had. I began planting seeds, small, deniable acts. I left a scarf, not hers, in our car, let her find it. From a colleague, I said, watching her squirm. I mentioned seeing Julian at a bar with another woman, a lie that made her eyes flicker with doubt. I was eroding their trust, brick by brick, while building my final act. Rachel's next report would give me the leverage I needed. A secret Julian was hiding, one that would shatter everything. Rachel's email arrived at midnight, a dossier on Julian that changed the game. He wasn't just a charming photographer. He was a con man of sorts. Before Seattle, he'd lived in Portland, where he'd been sued for forging provenance on a series of prints sold to a private collector. The case settled out of court, hushed up, but Rachel found the paper trail. Julian had also been linked to a married gallery owner there, using her influence until she caught him skimming profits. He'd fled to Seattle, reinventing himself, and now he was repeating the pattern with Clara. This was my weapon. I could expose Julian, not just to Clara but to the art world, ruining his credibility. But I wanted more than his downfall. I wanted Clara to confront her own betrayal, to feel the humiliation I'd endured. I started by leaking the Portland story to a local art blog, anonymously framing it as a tip from a concerned insider. The post went live, subtle but damning, questioning Julian's ethics. Whispers spread at Clara's gallery, her colleagues eyeing her, wondering how deep her ties to him ran. She came home rattled, claiming it was slander, but I saw the fear in her eyes. I didn't stop there. I accessed Julian's bank records. Rachel's skills were worth every penny, and found payments to a woman named Elise, a former assistant. Cross-referencing her social media, I learned she was pregnant, claiming Julian as the father in private posts. He'd been sending her hush money, small sums to keep her quiet. I sent Elise an anonymous message, posing as a friend, urging her to go public. Within days, she posted a cryptic rant on X, tagging Julian, hinting at his secrets. Clara saw it, her face paling as she scrolled her phone at breakfast. "It's nothing," she muttered, but her voice cracked. I played the devoted husband, asking if she was okay, if Julian was causing her stress. She deflected, but the seed was planted. I escalated, sending Clara an anonymous email with a screenshot of Julian's payments to Elise, titled, "Know Who You're With." She didn't mention it, but I saw her pacing that night, phone in hand, arguing in hushed tones. Their trust was fraying, and I was the unseen architect of its collapse. At home, I tightened the screws. I left Julian's monogrammed lighter, stolen from his jacket at a gallery event, on our kitchen counter. Clara froze when she saw it, her excuse about a work meeting stumbling out. I feigned ignorance, but her panic was palpable. I was dismantling her affair, piece by piece, while planning the final blow, a public reckoning that would leave them both exposed. But first, I needed Clara to admit her betrayal, to face me before I unleashed hell. I decided to force Clara's hand, to make her confess without revealing my hand. I invited her to dinner at our favorite bistro, a place heavy with memories of our early years. I dressed carefully, hiding my rage behind a warm smile, and she seemed relieved, as if my efforts signaled normalcy. Over candlelight and risotto, I steered the conversation to trust, to vows, my voice soft but deliberate. "We've always been honest, haven't we?" I asked, watching her four-paws midair. She nodded, her eyes flickering, and I pressed. "If something was wrong, you'd tell me, right?" She squirmed, sipping her wine too quickly, and mumbled about work stress. I leaned in, my tone gentle but unyielding. "Clara, I feel like you're hiding something. I deserve to know." Her face tightened, and for a moment, I thought she'd break. But she deflected, blaming my long hours, saying we'd grown distant. It was a half-truth, a coward's dodge, and it fueled my resolve. I didn't push further. I wanted her to stew, to feel the walls closing in. The next day, I upped the ante. I accidentally left my phone open on a fake text thread, created with a burner app, between me and a fictional colleague, discussing a suspicious guy seen at our loft. Clara found it while I showered, and when I emerged, her face was ashen. "Who's this about?" she asked, voice trembling. I shrugged, saying it was probably nothing, but her paranoia was evident. She started checking the camera footage herself. Unaware, I'd edited it to show only innocent moments, making her doubt her own lies. I kept the pressure on. At a gallery event, I cornered Julian in front of colleagues, loudly praising his Portland work with a knowing smile. His face drained of color, and Clara, nearby, overheard, her expression a mix of confusion and dread. Later, I saw them arguing in a corner, her gestures sharp, his defensive. The art blog's rumors, Elise's posts, my subtle traps, they were unraveling her affair, and she was starting to crack. That night, I set the final trap. I told Clara I was going out of town for a site visit, but I stayed in a hotel watching the camera feed. Julian arrived, but their meeting was tense, not intimate. Clara was crying, accusing him of lying about Elise, about Portland. He denied everything, but she wasn't buying it. When he left, she sat alone, sobbing, and I felt a twisted satisfaction. She was breaking, and soon she'd have to face me. I returned home the next morning, feigning exhaustion. Clara was quiet, her eyes red. I waited, giving her one last chance to confess. When she didn't, I knew it was time. The final act of my revenge was ready. A public exposure that would strip them both bare, leaving Clara to face the wreckage of her choices. Clara's silence was a confession in itself, her red-rimmed eyes betraying the guilt she wouldn't voice. I'd given her every chance to come clean, but she clung to her lies like a crumbling facade. My plan for revenge was no longer just about justice. It was about making her feel the weight of her betrayal, the same suffocating pain I'd carried for weeks. The art world, her sanctuary, would be the stage for her downfall, and Julian would be collateral damage. I spent days refining the details, my architect precision guiding every move. I started with the Fremont Gallery, where Clara was curating a high-profile group show, her biggest yet. It was her moment to shine, with critics, collectors, and Seattle's elite expected to attend. Julian's work was featured, a last-minute addition she'd pushed for, no doubt to bolster his faltering career. I saw my opportunity. Using a burner email, I contacted the gallery's director, posing as a whistleblower. I sent evidence of Julian's Portland fraud, court documents Rachel had unearthed, along with screenshots of his payments to Elise, hinting at a scandal that could taint the show. I suggested they verify his credentials quietly. The director, a cautious man, took the bait. Meanwhile, I worked on Clara's psyche. I left subtle clues around the house. A hotel keycard in my briefcase. A vague note about a meeting in my planner, making her think I was hiding something too. Her paranoia grew. She'd check my phone when she thought I wasn't looking, her fingers trembling. At night, she'd toss in her sleep, murmuring Julian's name once, a dagger to my heart. I kept my composure, playing the loving husband, but inside, I was a furnace of rage, stoking the flames for the gala. I also reached out to Elise, anonymously, offering to help her expose Julian. I sent her a prepaid phone and instructions to attend the gallery event, promising a platform to confront him. She agreed, her anger at Julian palpable even through text. I didn't care about her motives. She was a pawn in my design, a living bomb to detonate at the right moment. Everything was aligning, the pieces of my revenge snapping into place like a perfectly drafted blueprint. The night before the gala, Clara was a wreck, snapping at me over dinner, her phone buzzing with texts she ignored. I asked about the show, feigning excitement, and she forced a smile, saying it would change everything. I nodded, knowing it would, but not in the way she imagined. As she slept, I reviewed the camera footage, now a ritual, and saw her pacing, whispering in her phone, likely to Julian. Their empire of deceit was about to collapse, and I'd be there to watch it burn. The Fremont Gallery buzzed with anticipation, its glass walls glowing under string lights, a beacon for Seattle's art elite. I wore a tailored suit, Clara in a sleek black dress, her beauty a cruel reminder of what I'd lost. She clung to my arm, her smile brittle, as we mingled with collectors and critics. Julian was there, his charm dialed up, but I saw the strain in his eyes, the weight of the blog rumors and canceled gigs. The gallery director, Mr. Hargrove, greeted us coolly, his gaze lingering on Julian. My leak had worked, the trap was set. I'd ensured Elise's entry, her name added to the guest list via a discreet call to a gallery assistant. She arrived late, unassuming in a green coat, her presence unnoticed by Clara and Julian. I kept Clara busy, introducing her to a critic I knew she admired, while watching Elise circle the room, her eyes locked on Julian. The air felt charged, like the moment before a beam buckles under stress. I sipped my champagne, my pulse steady, ready for the collapse. Hargrove took the stage, his speech praising the artists, until he paused, his tone shifting. "We've recently learned of concerns regarding one contributor's credentials," he said, not naming Julian, but glancing his way. The crowd murmured, Clara's grip on my arm tightening. Julian's face paled, his smile frozen. Before Hargrove could continue, Elise stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room. "Julian Voss is a liar," she shouted, holding up her phone, displaying texts he'd sent her. "He got me pregnant and paid me to stay quiet. The room erupted, gasps and whispers spreading like wildfire. Clara froze, her eyes darting between Elise and Julian, who stammered denials. I played the shocked husband, pulling Clara close, but my heart sang with vindication. Hargrove, flustered, tried to regain control, but the damage was done. Critics scribbled notes, collectors turned away, and Julian's career crumbled in real time. Clara's face was a mask of horror, her world unraveling as her lover's secrets spilled into the open. I leaned in, whispering, "We should go," guiding her toward the exit. She nodded, dazed, as we passed Julian, now cornered by Elise and a growing crowd. Outside, Clara's composure broke, tears streaming as she apologized, claiming she didn't know about Elise. I said nothing, letting her squirm, knowing the worst was yet to come. The gala was just the first fracture. I had one more blow to deliver, one that would strip Clara of everything she valued, leaving her to face the ruins of her betrayal. In the car, Clara's sobs filled the silence, her hands wringing in her lap. I drove, my face a mask of concern, but inside, I was a predator circling its prey. "What's going on, Clara?" I asked, my voice soft, inviting confession. She hesitated, then the dam broke. "It's Julian," she choked out. "We got close. I didn't mean for it to happen, Dan. It was a mistake." Her words were a flood, admitting months of meetings, stolen moments in our loft, our cabin, hotels. She swore it was over, that Elise's outburst had opened her eyes. I listened, letting her spill every detail, each word a brick in the wall of my resolve. She didn't know I'd seen it all, that I'd orchestrated the gala's chaos. "Why?" I asked, my tone measured, hiding the storm within. She rambled about feeling neglected, about Julian's passion reigniting her own. It was a weak excuse, a betrayal dressed in self-pity. I nodded, feigning understanding, but my mind was on the next phase. Her confession was the key I needed to justify what came next. At home, Clara begged for forgiveness, promising to cut Julian off, to rebuild us. I didn't respond, my silence a weapon. I let her sleep in our bed, her tears soaking the pillow, while I retreated to my study. There, I finalized my plan. The gala had ruined Julian, but Clara's punishment needed to be personal, a mirror to her deceit. I'd expose her affair to her colleagues, her family, our friends, not through confrontation, but through undeniable proof delivered with surgical precision. I compiled the evidence, camera footage, emails, texts, photos from Rachel's reports. I edited a video, a montage of Clara and Julian's moments in our loft, her laughter, their intimacy, paired with her gala confession recorded on my phone. It was raw, devastating, a narrative no one could deny. I created an anonymous email account and drafted a message, attaching the video, addressed to her gallery board, her parents, our mutual friends. I didn't send it yet. Timing was everything. I wanted her to feel safe, to think she'd salvaged our marriage before I pulled the rug out. The next day, Clara was subdued, making breakfast, trying to play the repentant wife. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and left for work, but I was meeting Rachel. She'd found one last piece, a letter Julian had written to Clara, left in his studio, declaring his intent to leave Seattle with her. It was the final nail. I added it to the email, my revenge now a towering structure, ready to collapse on Clara's world. I gave Clara a week of false hope, playing the wounded but forgiving husband. I agreed to couples therapy, sat through sessions where she wept, promising change. I nodded, my words supportive, but my heart was stone. Each night, I reviewed my email draft, tweaking the wording, ensuring it would hit like a sledgehammer. I wanted her to feel the betrayal's echo, to lose the respect of everyone she valued, just as I'd lost my trust in her. Clara threw herself into repairing us, cooking elaborate dinners, planning a weekend getaway. I went along, my smiles calculated, letting her believe we were healing. But I was also working behind the scenes. I contacted her gallery's board, anonymously, suggesting they audit her recent decisions, hinting at conflicts of interest tied to Julian. The board, already rattled by the gala, launched a review, and Clara came home stressed, claiming it was routine. I knew better. Her career was teetering. I also reached out to Julian's remaining clients, spreading rumors of his unreliability, ensuring his exile from Seattle's art scene was complete. Rachel confirmed he was packing, planning to leave town, his reputation in tatters. I felt no pity. He'd been a willing thief in my marriage. But Clara was my focus. I began dropping hints to our friends, vague comments about trust issues, planting seeds of doubt. Their sympathetic looks at Clara shifted, curiosity replacing warmth. One evening, Clara suggested renewing our vows, a desperate bid to anchor us. I agreed, saying it could be beautiful, but I was picturing the email send button. I set the date for the email drop, 2 days after our vow renewal dinner, a private event at her loft. The irony was perfect. She'd pledge her love while I held her destruction in my hands. I invited her parents, our closest friends, knowing they'd soon see the truth. The night before the dinner, I tested the waters one last time. I asked Clara if she'd told me everything about Julian. She swore she had, her eyes pleading. I believe her sincerity, but it was too late. Her betrayal had reshaped me, turned my love into a blueprint for vengeance. As she slept, I finalized the email list, adding every name that mattered to her. The video was ready, the letter attached, my message clear. See the real Clara. I went to bed, my resolve unbreakable, the countdown to her ruin ticking down. The vow renewal dinner was a masterclass in deception, hers and mine. Our loft glowed with candles, the table set with Clara's favorite linens, a spread of her beloved Italian dishes. Her parents beamed. Our friends toasted our resilience, unaware of the bomb I'd planted. Clara wore a white dress, echoing our wedding day, her vows heartfelt, promising eternity. I reciprocated, my words tender, my eyes locked on hers, but my mind was on the email, scheduled to send at midnight the next day. Each smile I gave her was a lie, each touch a countdown. Clara's parents pulled me aside, praising my forgiveness, saying Clara was lucky. I nodded, my stomach twisting, knowing they'd soon see her in a different light. Our friends danced, the music masking the tension only I felt. Clara clung to me, whispering gratitude, her body warm against mine. For a moment, I remembered the woman I'd loved, the life we'd built. But the memory of her with Julian, her laughter in our loft, burned away any softness. She'd chosen this path. I was merely its architect. After the guests left, Clara tried to pull me close, her eyes hopeful. I pleaded exhaustion, retreating to my study, where I checked the email one last time. The video was brutal. Clips of her and Julian, her confession, Julian's letter vowing to run away with her. The recipients included her gallery board, her parents, our friends, even her mentor from art school. I added a line to the message. She betrayed the man who loved her. Now you know who she is. It was cruel, yes, but so was her deceit. I slept on the couch, claiming a headache, while Clara tossed in our bed, oblivious to the storm coming. The next morning, she was cheerful, planning a brunch, as if our vows had reset everything. I played along, my heart a cold engine, waiting for midnight. I spent the day tying loose ends, confirming with Rachel that Julian had left Seattle, his studio emptied, his name mud in the art world. Elise had moved to Portland, her story gaining traction online, ensuring Julian's ruin followed him. As evening fell, Clara sensed my distance, asking if I was okay. I said I needed time, my voice heavy, letting her think I was struggling with her confession. She apologized again, tears falling, but I was unmoved. At 11:55 p.m., I sat in my study, watching the clock. At midnight, the email sent, a silent explosion that would detonate her world. I pictured her parents' shock, her colleagues' judgment, our friends' betrayal. Clara's life, so carefully curated, was about to collapse, and I designed every fracture. The morning after the email sent, I woke to the sound of Clara's phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. I'd slept in the guest room, claiming a need for space, but really I wanted distance from the fallout I'd engineered. She stumbled into the kitchen, her face pale, eyes wide as she scrolled through notifications. I sipped my coffee, feigning ignorance, watching her world unravel. "Something wrong?" I asked, my tone neutral, a perfect mask of concern. Her voice trembled as she mumbled about a work issue, but I saw the panic. Her parents had called 3 times, her gallery director twice, and our friends group chat was a flurry of messages she didn't open. The video had landed, its impact seismic. I pictured her mother's shock, her father's disappointment, her colleagues' whispers. Clara excused herself, retreating to the bathroom, where I heard muffled sobs. I felt no pity, only a cold satisfaction, like a blueprint executed flawlessly. By noon, the calls were relentless. Her gallery director demanded a meeting, her tone icy through the speakerphone. Clara tried to explain, claiming the video was manipulated, but her voice cracked, her lies crumbling. I stayed in my study, pretending to work while tracking the fallout on X. The art blog that had exposed Julian now hinted at a curator's scandal, linking to Elise's post for context. Clara's name wasn't public yet, but the noose was tightening. Our friends texted me directly, asking if I was okay, their sympathy a knife in Clara's social fabric. She confronted me that afternoon, her eyes red, holding her phone like a grenade. "Did you know about this?" she asked, showing me a screenshot of the email subject line. "See the real Clara." I shook my head, my expression pained, saying I was as shocked as she was. She didn't bite entirely, her gaze searching mine, but guilt kept her from pressing. "I'm sorry, Dan," she whispered, collapsing into a chair. "I ruined everything." I nodded, letting her stew in her regret, knowing this was only the beginning. That evening, her parents arrived unannounced, their faces grim. They barely looked at me, their focus on Clara, who shrank under their disappointment. "How could you?" her mother asked, her voice breaking. Clara had no answer, only tears. I offered them tea, playing the wounded husband, while inside, I marveled at the precision of my revenge. Her family, her career, her friendships, all were fracturing just as I'd planned. As they left, her father squeezed my shoulder, whispering, "You're a good man, Daniel." I smiled, hiding the architect of their daughter's ruin. Clara's gallery called an emergency board meeting the next day, and she left the house looking like a ghost, her confidence shattered. I knew what was coming. My anonymous tip about her conflicts of interest, paired with the video, had poisoned her reputation. While she was gone, I checked the camera footage, a habit now, and saw her pacing before leaving, muttering to herself, "How did this happen?" I almost laughed. She still didn't suspect me, her guilt blinding her to my hand in her downfall. Rachel sent an update. The gallery board was auditing Clara's recent exhibitions, focusing on her favoritism toward Julian. 2 sponsors had pulled funding, citing ethical concerns, and a major collector had withdrawn from her upcoming show. The board decision came that afternoon. Clara was suspended, pending a full investigation. She returned home, her eyes hollow, and told me in a monotone, "They think I compromised the gallery." I hugged her, murmuring support, but my embrace was a cage, my words a facade. Her suspension hit the art world like a shockwave. Colleagues she'd mentored stopped calling, her invitations to events vanished, and her name became a cautionary tale. I amplified the damage subtly, emailing a critic she admired, anonymously, with a tip about her unprofessional conduct. The critic's next column mentioned a Seattle curator's fall, veiled but unmistakable. Clara read it, her hands shaking, and I watched her spirit erode, her identity as an art world star dissolving. At home, she withdrew, barely eating, her phone silent now that her network had abandoned her. I kept up the charade, suggesting we take a trip to clear our heads, knowing she was too broken to agree. Our friends invited me to dinners, excluding her, their pity for me a silent condemnation of her. She noticed, her voice small as she asked, "Are they avoiding me?" I shrugged, saying people were just busy, letting her isolation deepen. I wasn't done. I contacted her mentor, Dr. Ellis, an art historian she revered, sending the video with a note. She betrayed more than her husband. Ellis replied, copied to Clara, expressing profound disappointment and cutting ties. Clara read it in our living room, her sob a raw, animal sound. I stood in the doorway, unseen, my revenge a towering structure now, its shadow swallowing her. She was losing everything, and I was the unseen force, orchestrating every collapse. Clara's unraveling was complete, but I wanted her to face me, to see the cost of her betrayal. I waited until a quiet evening, the loft dim, rain streaking the windows. She sat on the couch, staring at nothing, a shell of the woman I'd married. I poured us wine, sat across from her, and said, "We need to talk." Her eyes met mine, wary, sensing a shift. I didn't raise my voice, didn't accuse. I simply asked, "Do you know why this is happening?" She flinched, her fingers tightening around her glass. "I messed up, Dan. I know that." But I shook my head, my tone calm, lethal. "No, Clara, you didn't just mess up. You chose him over and over in our home, our life." Her face crumpled, but I continued, revealing the camera, the footage, the emails I'd found months ago. Her jaw dropped, realization dawning. You knew?" she whispered, her voice breaking. I nodded, laying out my discovery, my pain, my months of watching her lie. I didn't mention the email or the gala, letting her think the video's leak was someone else's doing, Julian's, perhaps, or a vindictive colleague. "I loved you," I said, my voice steady, "but you broke us, and now you're paying for it." She sobbed, begging for forgiveness, saying she'd do anything to fix it. But I was unmoved, her tears no match for the betrayal I'd endured. I told her I was leaving, that I'd file for divorce. She clutched my arm, pleading, but I pulled away, my heart a fortress. "You made your choices," I said, standing. "Live with them." I packed a bag, my movements deliberate, and walked out, her cries echoing behind me. I checked into a hotel, my phone off, savoring the silence. She'd lost her career, her family's respect, her friends, and now me. My revenge was complete, its cruelty a mirror to her deceit. But a flicker of doubt crept in. Had I gone too far? The video's reach was wider than I'd intended. Ex-posts now speculated about Clara's downfall, her name trending locally. I pushed the thought aside. She'd earned this, I told myself, her betrayal a debt that demanded payment. Still, I checked the footage one last time, seeing her alone in the loft, curled on the floor, broken. I felt a pang, quickly buried. This was justice, not cruelty. I moved into a condo downtown, a sleek space with no trace of Clara. The divorce papers were drafted, my lawyer ensuring Clara got nothing but her clothes and car. I'd protected our assets, transferring savings to a new account months ago, anticipating this moment. She didn't contest it, her fight gone, her signature shaky on the documents. Our marriage ended quietly, a contract dissolved, like a building demolished to clear the land. I rebuilt my life with precision. Work thrived. My firm landed a major project, a museum redesign that kept me focused. Friends rallied around me, their loyalty a balm, though I never shared the full story. On X, I saw Clara's name fade, her scandal overtaken by newer dramas. Rachel confirmed she'd moved to a small apartment, working a low-level admin job, her art world dreams dead. Julian was in obscurity, his social media silent, his career a footnote. I felt no guilt, but I didn't celebrate either. Revenge had been a necessity, a structural correction to balance the scales. Yet, late at night, I'd see Clara's face, not the traitor but the woman I'd loved, laughing on our honeymoon. I'd shake it off, focusing on the present, my life a clean slate. I dated sparingly, wary of trust, my heart a locked blueprint. My revenge had freed me, but it had also hardened me, a trade-off I accepted. I kept tabs on Clara, not out of care but curiosity. She'd stopped posting online, her vibrant presence erased. A mutual friend mentioned she was in therapy, trying to rebuild. I nodded, unmoved, but the friend's words lingered. "She's not the same, Dan." I didn't respond. She wasn't my Clara anymore. She was a stranger, her fate her own making. One evening, walking by the Fremont Gallery, I saw a new exhibit, none of Clara's influence in it. The art world had moved on, as had I. My revenge was a closed project, its purpose served. I turned away, the city lights bright, my future unburdened by her shadow. A year later, I stood on a balcony overlooking Seattle, my condo a testament to my new life. The museum project was a success, my name respected, my heart steady. I'd learned to live alone, to find peace in solitude, though trust remained a fragile beam. Clara's betrayal had reshaped me, but I'd rebuilt stronger, my foundation unyielding. I heard through a friend that Clara had left Seattle, moving to a small town in Oregon, working at a community art center. She was trying to reclaim her passion, they said, but her spark was dimmed. I felt a twinge, not regret, but acknowledgement of the cost. My revenge had been cruel, yes, but proportional, a response to her calculated deceit. She'd chosen Julian, chosen lies, and I'd chosen justice. I never watched the video again, deleting it from my cloud, erasing the last trace of her betrayal. The camera was gone, the loft sold, its memories buried. I kept one photo of us from our first anniversary, her smile genuine then. It lived in a drawer, a reminder of what was and what I'd survived. On X, I saw a post about forgiveness, sparking debate. I scrolled past, uninterested. Forgiveness was for those who hadn't seen their world dismantled. I'd chosen a different path, one of retribution, and it had set me free. Clara's life was her own now, her consequences her burden. I turned from the balcony, the city alive below, my heart calm, my revenge a finished blueprint, its purpose fulfilled.